Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Monterey Bay Aquarium here live all across the internet. Going to turn down the volume there of the exhibit audio. Hello, everyone. My name is Patrick. I work at the aquarium here in social media, and we are here for a very special live chat with all of you folks out there. So feel free to send us your questions. Looks like we're live on YouTube, on Periscope, on Facebook, coming live on Twitch here in just a second. Now, joining me from her house, as always, we have Emily. Emily, how you doing over there? All right. Now, hold on 1 second, everybody. No, if you folks want to go ahead and let's see. I'm wondering, we might not be able to hear folks at the moment. And now we should be able to hear you folks. Okay. All right. Hey everyone, let's start this over as if none of that happened. You know, we are streaming from so many different places all at the same time. I think I figured it out. Emily, how are you doing over there? Can you hear me?
I am doing very well,
Yes.
Patrick.
Okay,
we have now.
Yes, we have Emily up on the stream. Yeah, for some reason the computer decided to have your audio be something a little bit different there. But okay,
well,
here we go. So we've got Emily, and then you can also see, folks, up on the screen right now that we have an image of Dr. Mike, and joining us from his humble abode, we have Dr. Mike Murray, our staff veterinarian here at the aquarium. Dr. Mike, how are you doing today?
We're doing simply delightful, all things considered. It's great to be able to talk to you and Emily and all the other folks out there.
Oh, this is awesome. So, folks, we are live now all across everywhere. We should be able to see your questions coming in. Yes, we see them right there. We've got folks tuning in from Florida. We've got folks over on Twitch saying hello to Emily and Dr. Mike. Folks over on YouTube as well. Hello. Hi from Montana. So, Dr. Mike, thank you so much for being here. Just very quickly, quick question. I know a lot of folks are wondering, with the closure due to coronavirus, can you give us an update? How are the animals doing at the aquarium? We have staff coming in, making sure to provide that exemplary care that you and your team are known for. How are the animals doing?
Well, actually, they're doing very well. This certainly doesn't have much of an impact on their health. However, I think some of them are bored. They do interact with the people on the other side of the acrylic.
Yeah, so that mental stimulation that the animals are used to getting from seeing all of the visitors, we often let visitors know when they're visiting the aquarium. This is a lot of enjoyment for them, but the animals also get to see new faces, new people, new clothing styles go in and out of fashion, especially these rockfish that we're seeing here on the Monterey Bay cam that have been at the aquarium for 30 some years. They've certainly seen a lot of changes since we opened in the 80s. So equal parts entertainment for the animals and for the people, huh?
Yeah, when I go out and do my rounds in the morning, I frequently spend a fair bit of time in front of the kelp forest and in front of the Monterey Bay habitats. And what I've been able to observe is the giant sea bass in particular really engage with me, and they'll come right up, get perpendicular to the acrylic, and look at me while I'm looking at them. If I move to the right a few feet, they back up, come back in, follow me over, sit there and just kind of stare at me. I wonder what's going on in their mind. I certainly don't want to sell them short. I think they're smarter than I give them credit for. They certainly are more cognizant of their surroundings and do interact quite well with a whole lot of folks. And I think they miss a lot of the activity. From a health perspective, though, it's like any other community on any other day. You've got 35,000 people in that community. Somebody's going to be sick at some point.
Yeah, and so that is where you and your team come in, going in and checking in on all of those animals. And right now, actually, behind your image here, I'll take down your image very quickly. We have some of our dive team doing a little bit of work right now in the exhibit, siphoning up, cleaning. Can you tell us a little bit about how much animal care happens at the aquarium generally? You're making your rounds. Other folks on your team are making your rounds. The aquarists are. What does it take to keep these animals healthy?
Well, we do very similar to what any other veterinarian does. Respond to clinical cases. So the aquarists are very, very tightly contacted. They know what normal behavior for that swimming directly at us. They know that at fish as an individual. So if there's something that seems to miss, either the posture in the water, maybe tails down too much, or tails up too much, their appetite is off a little bit, literally take the fish. Other times it's more of I just kind of walk around and do rounds and fish. It's a heck of a job, you know, to be able to walk around and look at the aquarium all day. But there are a lot of very subtle things that I'm looking for evidence of changes in body posture, how much their abdomen may or may not be sunken in, parasite load, like those are respiratory rate, respiratory, those kinds of things to try to maintain a. The aquarists are just amazing caretakers. They're very tuned to them.
Yeah, I think that's a question that we get a lot from guests is, how can we tell all these animals apart from each other, especially when we have, many different leopard sharks inside of an exhibit like we're looking at right now, but each of them, for someone who spends all day, every day with these animals, they're all unique animals.
So we're getting some reports here, Dr. Mike, that your audio might be a little bit choppy. How's your audio going on your end there? We might have a fix.
Yeah, it's really kind of strange. I hear myself talk. About a 5-second delay.
Oh, okay. Are you potentially listening to the broadcast happening at the same time? If so, you want to mute that as we go.
So who am I muting?
Right on that YouTube video that I sent you.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're watching yourself with the delay of the buffer there, everyone. So for those of you who are wondering, everyone, for those of you who are wondering, watching, there's a lot of different technological pieces that are coming together. Dr. Mike is at his house, Emily is at her house, and I'm at my house, and we're streaming a live webcam that is coming from the aquarium right now via some digital trickery. And then on top of that, everyone, if you're watching, there are many reports of YouTube and Facebook and other social media accounts, because there is so much live streaming happening with all the schools closed and with so many different people coming online, that they are restricting bandwidth from different people. So there's a lot going on right now. Hopefully all of you folks are able to listen in right now. But as long as, Dr. Mike, if you're muting the YouTube link that we sent to you to watch, we should be able to hear you now. How does that work?
Sounds like it works just fine.
All right.
It works just fine. Hey, Patrick and Emily, I sent you all a few images that might illustrate some of the stuff that we do with the fish.
Absolutely. I'll bring some of those up. Which one do you want to start with?
Let's start with the one that's a blue box that's labeled guitar.
Guitar. Okay, we're going to play a little bit of music here, everybody. And there was actually a question that went by. We had, I believe we had a child 9 years old wondering how many different sharks we have here at the aquarium. And as I pull up here this photo of a guitar fish there, Dr. Mike, can you tell us how many Elasmobranch types do we have here at the aquarium?
More than one.
Nice.
I honestly, I don't know off the top of my head. If I were to think about it, we've got 7 gills, swell sharks, horned sharks, leopard sharks, a angel shark. Then we have the scalloped hammerhead sharks. We don't have a large spectrum of species on exhibit, but then we have the bat rays, the pelagic stingrays, the guitar fish like you see here. Then we have thorn-headed rays, some skates, and some rays as well. So the number of species is not that great. We really are very, very careful in the way we design our collections. or we design the way the exhibit looks to represent appropriate habitats, and we don't want it to end up kind of looking like a menagerie, just increase the number of animals that we have.
Right.
The one here, the image is another shark relative. This is a guitarfish, and this is how I see them. When there's a sick fish, this is what they will do. We've got these heavy plastic totes that have a little air space within the wall, so we can keep the water cold. You can see an air stone that's tucked in the corner on the left-hand side, and they'll wheel this to me either outside of the exhibit, or more typically, they'll bring it into us in the animal health lab. So Patrick, if you'd swap that for image 4009.
Image 4009 here. It's going to take me a while to scroll here through the 4008 other images standing by. Okay, it's switched.
Okay. Fish don't want to be handled and manhandled at all. So we typically use an anesthetic. And what we do is we dissolve this powder in the water. And then within 4 or 5 minutes, the fish relaxes, actually kind of goes to sleep. Then we can flip them upside down. And one of the really cool things about many fish, including the guitarfish, is that you can invert them like that, and that calms them down even more. So we have an anesthetic. We have this inversion called tonic immobility. And then the other thing that helps keep the fish very, very calm is that we hyperoxygenate, put extra oxygen into the water, and that it's sort of like giving them a couple of cocktails, and it really calms them down quite a bit. And you can kind of get the idea that this fish is not being restrained, it's just being supported. The right hand there on the left-hand side of the image is just protecting the tip of the nose. It's pretty sensitive, like the tip of your dog's nose. And then the left hand is supporting the spine so that we have the fish flipped over so that we can actually do an ultrasound just to get a look at the kidneys, the liver, the spleen, the gastrointestinal tract. They've got a very odd kind of a organ called a spiral valve that's in their intestines, just to give them a good physical. And then Patrick, if you'd go to 8741 image, which...
Okay, 8741 coming right up. And Dr. I just want to point out that we have quite a few followers right now that are saying that they too enjoy lying down on their back to relax. So many of them being a lot of them are thinking that that's really quite a nice little afternoon there. Okay, so hold on, and then next image there is up.
So this is part of our preventive medicine program. We not only respond to animals that are sick, but we also have a very extensive program to look at animals periodically. Penguins we do once a year, leopard sharks we do twice a year. This guitarfish gets an exam twice a year. And what we've got here is a small little endoscope, has a camera in the palm of my left hand, and then fiber optic light cable. So we can actually go in and examine the gills of this animal looking for parasites. And if we see parasites on the gills, that's not a good thing, because that fish is breathing through those gills. That's his respiratory system. So we want to take care of those, and it's pretty easily accomplished with an injection. So if you'll go to monogene number 2.
Number 2, can do. Pulling that up right now. So this is now a view through that endoscope inside the gills there of the guitarfish, correct?
Yes, sir, it sure is.
Okay,
and
so here we go, transitioning. That's a look inside the gills, everyone, there, of that guitarfish. Awesome.
And you can see this particular animal had a lot of little parasites. You can see what look like worms coming off of the gills. The gills are the long filamentous structures coming down. And then we have all of these little flatworms that are attached to the gills. They're causing damage, allowing bacteria in. So we do them twice a year. This was when we first started our preventive medicine program quite a while ago. So we don't have nearly the parasite problem that we used to, but we've gotten in front of this. One of the side effects of having the water system we have, which is really the secret sauce at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, with everything that comes in to make all these habitats look so natural, one of the things that comes with it are parasites. So we have to keep an eye on parasites. So we do this twice a year. And we can treat it with a drug. It's the same drug they would use in your dog or cat if you had tapeworms in that animal. We
Wow.
give them an injection while they're asleep, takes care of it. 6 or 8 months later, depending on the species, we take another look. And what we found over the past several years is now we rarely find parasites on the fish, which is really, really rewarding that our preventive medicine program is working very, very well.
That's great news. Dr. Mike, we had a question over on Facebook. How long would a procedure like this take? I know that you try and work as quickly as you can, so as not to kind of interrupt the fish's life too much.
It probably takes about a half an hour per fish. They I like to have them relaxed enough they're not going to hurt themselves. So it takes about 5 to 6 minutes to get the animal anesthetized. We typically will take a blood sample to monitor a complete blood count as well as some serum chemistry. We also do the ultrasound, then we'll do the endoscopy of the gills. And after we're done with that, we put them into a different blue tote that doesn't have anesthetic, and we will wake them up. Essentially, we will put either a Nalgene tube with water blowing over their gills to help speed their recovery rate. We may walk them, which basically means hold on to the animal and pretend it's swimming to move water over its gills. It wakes up very gradually over another 5 minutes or so, starts to swim, and then we want to make sure she's nice and sober before she goes back into the habitat.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we all want to try to make sure that we're as sober as we can be when we get back to work, I guess, at the aquarium. For those of you that are just joining us, thank you so much for tuning in. We are live right now talking to our aquarium veterinarian, Dr. Mike. My name's Patrick. We've got Emily as well, the other half of the social media team, over in her abode, and we are currently streaming a live view from the aquarium with some of our husbandry staff, our animal care staff that are in there vacuuming, cleaning up the exhibit, providing that exceptional animal care that is happening at the aquarium all the time. And Dr. Mike is here to answer your questions. And very quickly, Dr. Mike, I wanted to give you a really awesome message here from Olivia Pinnell over in Texas. She says, Dr. Mike, just want to let you know that you are my personal hero and that you inspired me to work towards becoming an aquatic veterinarian. Thank you so much for all that you do. So Olivia over in Texas giving the big shout out to you, Dr. Mike, which leads me into a question that we always get is, how does someone get into your line of work, Dr. Mike? And then do you have some favorite animal care stories of things, procedures of sick animals that you have helped nurse back to health? But first things first, how do we do your job?
Well, before that, thanks for the very kind words, Olivia. This is a wonderful profession to be in. I'm very proud of being a veterinarian. It truly is a labor of love. It's harder than it looks at times, but it is so very, very rewarding. As long as you can get your head around the idea that most of your patients are never, ever, ever going to thank you.
That's a very good point. I had not thought about that.
The people that come with them frequently do, but the animals, it's just so rewarding to see an animal come back from an illness, one flavor or another. To be an aquatic veterinarian, you first have to be a veterinarian. Part of our training, or our entire training, really puts us in a position where society expects us to be able to treat all species but one, and that one species is the human. So to get into veterinary school, there are a limited number of schools. I believe there are like 28 in the North America right now. To get into veterinary school, you first have to go to college and get a bachelor's degree at a minimum. I had classmates with PhDs when I graduated from Purdue. After that, you apply for the veterinary program. It's very competitive. There aren't that many chairs available compared to other medical professions. The veterinary program itself is 4 years, and during that 4-year time period, you're going to learn essentially a very, very broad spectrum of animal anatomy, physiology, pathology, disease, clinical methodology, things like that. Most schools tend to work with, you learn a normal standard animal. And at Purdue, when I went through, that normal standard animal was the dog. So everything we did was sort of what's the difference between this and a dog? So when you dealt with a cat, what's the difference between a cat and a dog, anatomically and so on? If you got up to a horse, what's the difference between the horse and the standard model of the dog? And that's sort of how we're trained. So now when I am faced with a very odd animal, and maybe Patrick, you could pull up the sand dollar.
Oh yeah.
So when I have a sick sand dollar, I have to think, what's the difference between a sand dollar and a dog? But when you get down to the cellular level, there really isn't that much difference. So that's how you're kind of trained. After that, then the next step is advanced training to sort of focus or specialize to some degree. My recommendation to folks like Olivia who want to be aquatic veterinarians is that after you graduate, you spend a year or two doing an internship where you're already a veterinarian, working under the close supervision of an experienced veterinarian in companion animal medicine, dogs and cats. And the reason for that is so that you gain confidence and you learn a lot of the very basic clinical techniques. They didn't teach me how to take essentially a blood sample from a sand dollar at Purdue University in West Lafayette, Indiana.
Not
But
too many sand dollars to worry about out there. No.
yeah, not live ones. But you because you get the confidence through experience and doing it over and over again, it was pretty simple to go to some very basic zoology texts, look at the anatomy of the sand dollar and where I should be able to get this fluid sample, so we could start working the animal up. And on that particular animal, if you look at the side to the right of the image, you can see where she started to slough some of her integument, some of her spines. So you do the internship, then you apply for something like a residency, which is going to be very, very focused. We have a fellowship that we work with University of California at Davis, as well as California Academy of Sciences in San Francisco and Hub SeaWorld Research Institute down in San Diego. That's somebody who's very, very interested in aquatic medicine. So you have 4 years of college, you have 4 years of veterinary school, you have 2 years of internship, you have 2 to 3 years of a residency. And at that point, you may or may not want to sit for a specialty board through the American College of Zoological Medicine. It's not required. I'm not a diplomat in that college, but it is another option. So really to get from high school graduation to being, what one would consider to be an aquatic animal veterinarian, you're looking at the better part of 12 to 13, maybe 14 years of time.
Wow. And I just wanted to point out, Dr. Mike, I pulled up that other photo that you had there of the sand dollar. I believe that is a blood sample there of the sand dollar, that slide that we have up on screen there.
So to speak, they don't really have blood the way you and I do. They have what's called hemolymph or coelomolymph. The cells are suspended. They have a pretty open system. Rather than having red blood cells that pick up oxygen and carry it around, the oxygen ends up dissolved in fluid on different molecules depending upon the species. For example, the octopus has a copper base. So when you take their blood fluid, that in air will turn blue rather than red like ours.
And speaking of that hemocyanin there, Dr. Mike, you are represented right now on screen as an octopus, and that is a nod just very quickly to you folks out there who might be wondering. In Finding Dory, the moment when we discover Hank the septopus, the octopus that ends up following along for the rest of the adventure there, that octopus is discovered in a very accurate model of what was then our animal care lab there that Dr. Mike spends a lot of time in. So that's a little nod right there to the little Easter egg. If you folks watch Finding Dory again, that octopus is discovered in an office that looks exactly like your office, Dr. Mike. So anyway, looks like you got some blue blood there outside of just the blue outline to your graphic too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was a lot of fun working with those folks. There are a lot of things that I recognized in that movie. Tanks, even in our lab, some of the labels on the drawers had corners of the label that may be separating from the cabinetry a little bit, and they were in the same place. It was really pretty cool. But Olivia in particular, once you get there, it's an amazing experience. There are incredible opportunities the veterinarians have, particularly when you decide you want to work with aquatics or with wildlife, and you have an opportunity to go to some pretty remarkable places. Patrick, if you could get the otter tracking in Prince William Sound.
Otter tracking, Prince William Sound. Otter tracking in winter. Here we go. Oh, I love this photo. It looks really awesome. Here we go. A little bit of a different look than what we have in Monterey most of the time. Let me see.
This was an opportunity for me to participate in some monitoring post Exxon Valdez oil spill. And we did a lot of work in the summer, which was great. It was warm, daylight hours were very long. But we decided we really needed to look in the winter, and we didn't like that idea. It's a little bit chilly up there. But what amazing places to be able to go to work. Veterinarians have been pretty much all over the planet working with animals. I've had the adventures up in the northeastern Pacific for the most part. I have been over on the other side of the Pacific on Bering Island in Russia. But it's a profession that has so many different directions you can go into that I encourage anybody who's up for it to really take a very, very close look at it. From a educational perspective, I think that the two things that I would want to focus on primarily are math and reading. I spend a lot of time reading every day, and math is really the basis of all of science, and medicine is in part greatly science driven. So those two things, and then start looking towards working with a veterinarian. Get a job. You're going to be a kennel attendant primarily in a small animal practice. If you go to work at a large animal vet or a horse vet, you're going to be using a pitchfork a lot and turd herding out in the various paddocks. But you'll be around animals, and you'll get the experience, and very, very importantly, you'll understand what veterinary medicine, what the day-to-day life is like. It can be very difficult. It can be heartbreaking, but at the end of the day, the heartwarming and the positives far, 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 far outweigh the negatives. But it's important to go into it with open eyes, because it's as you can tell, an arduous journey to get from point A to point B.
That's wonderful. We have a lot of people saying, yay, math and reading. And we also have a few future marine biologists that are tuning in. I think I saw, ages 10, 7, and then also 9 months old. So already committed at less than a year, knowing that they want to be marine biologists. Emily, did you see any questions coming by for Dr.
Maybe a favorite animal that you've worked with over the years?
That's one of the hardest questions I get. And I don't mean to be trite in my answer, but I don't have a favorite. To me, my favorite animal is the one in front of me. I think it's really inappropriate for me to play favorites. I just think that whatever animal I'm dealing with is the one that I focused on. That's who I have to take the most care of. That's where I'm going to keep my focus and my priority. When that animal leaves and another one comes through, then it shifts. I'm fascinated by all of them, their life histories, their natural histories, how they make a living out in the world is really remarkable. So I really don't play favorites. My favorite animal is a healthy one.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's a good answer right there. Yeah. And then just looking through some of the questions again here. We had a couple of folks who were wondering um, just kind of what a day at the aquarium looks like for you when you wake up in the morning, you walk in. I know that every day is a little bit different, but what does an average day at the aquarium look like for you?
Yeah, well, my day starts somewhere around 6:30 in the morning. Um, and what I like to do is kind of walk around the aquarium before anyone shows up and take a look at the animals. They tend to be more reactive to me. Um, they come out to see what's going on. It's a change in their environment. I've divided the aquarium up into 4 quadrants. I have, first floor, second floor on the near shore wing, and first floor and second floor on the outer bay wing. Um, and then I've always got the sea otters and penguins and other birds to deal with, and I deal with them throughout the day, every day. But I go through and I look at all the exhibits. I look in all the service areas in 1 quadrant a day. So that's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Friday is kind of a catch up. After I'm done with rounds on the floor, there's always this annoyance of email that I start to go through. At 7:30 in the morning, the team shows up. I've got a veterinary technician and then an animal program administrator. And right now we've got a veterinary fellow, and we'll have our own set of rounds talking about the cases we're going to see today, as well as results that may have come in overnight from various laboratories. In the morning is when we like to do our clinical procedures. That's when we do the anesthesias for the most part, um, and we do the surgeries. Then uh, take a break around lunchtime, which is typically for a veterinarian writing medical records and eating simultaneously. Uh, then in the afternoon, it's follow up on our clinical cases to make sure the curators are aware of what we're doing, as well as the aquarists. Checking animals that may or may not have been anesthetized, make sure they've recovered okay. I also have some other folks that I have to work with. We've got a pretty remarkable applied water science group. So I work with their director, Casey Regner, every day because water is the key ingredient for most of the animals we have at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. And then I try to get out by 4:30 or 5. I get home. I've got a couple of dogs that are anxiously awaiting a return so I can get them outside and just enter a bit of a day at home and then finish up with a little bit of reading at night, trying to keep up and repeat.
Wow,
I'm on
that's
call 24/7, 365, so something frequently happens.
that's quite the regimen and commitment. A lot of folks out there applauding your dedication to all of those animals. Oh, we just had a question come in that is relevant to my interests. Dr. Mike, I like to go diving and take photos of nudibranchs. Have you ever worked on a nudibranch? Is the question from Kai over on YouTube. And then of course, we have so many people wondering if you have a strangest animal or procedure. I think you've already answered that a little bit, but have you ever worked on a nudibranch before is the question.
We've worked on sea hares a little bit.
Okay.
And my impact on nudibranchs really is unfortunately at the end of life. If we have one that we can see is on the trajectory towards death, we may euthanize it so that we can submit it to a pathologist to get an idea of how the animal, why the animal was senescing and dying. Was the care we're giving to the animal proper? Did we have the right kind of food in the right amount? Was there evidence of dietary deficiencies or dietary excesses? Unfortunately, there's not an awful lot in the literature about diseases of many of these animals. We are starting to influence it more and more. There's a much larger group of veterinarians who work with aquatic invertebrates than there were, even 5 years ago. But the database is pretty small.
Yeah,
So
it's a fascinating point about how we know so little about these animals, and so as we're providing as good care as we can, if an animal does pass away, it is a really good time to do a lot of investigation into how these animals work and behave, and that can help going forward. So it's really, a lot of people saying it's really amazing how much information we're learning and getting better every day taking care of those animals. Let's see. We've got Julia, age 6, says that she has a dog at home too, and she wants to know the names of your puppers there, Dr. Mike.
Oh man. Okay, well, one of them's named Lucy.
One of them's Lucy. Okay.
Lucy. The other one is a rescue dog who came to us, and her name is Honey Bunch.
Honey Bunch.
Which, yep, there you go.
So you need to add N oats, and you would have the full package there, right?
There you go. Yes, those are the two. They're both mixed breed dogs, and they add a lot of fun and enjoyment to life, and they give us a good excuse to go out on the street and walk the dogs in this current situation.
That's awesome.
They love going out so they can leave their pee mail.
Exactly. Emily, go for it. Yeah. What questions are you seeing?
Well, we were just talking about some of the, the smallest invertebrates over at the aquarium. We also had some questions about some of the larger, more charismatic megafauna that we have, our sea turtles. I know that since our sea turtles are some of the larger animals at the aquarium, we don't make them come into the office. You make some house calls for them, don't you, Dr. Mike?
Yes, I do. X49 and X59 were their tag numbers, or are their tag numbers. They are also on a preventive medicine program. We do examinations of them at least once a year. It's a little bit more difficult to work with them. They weigh about 300 to 400 pounds apiece. Historically, it used to be a bit of a wrangling match to try and get them to hold still, and they really didn't appreciate it. We've had some new folks come on board who have instituted some really interesting training with the sea turtles. So now they're sort of, we have an off-exhibit tank that turtles will voluntarily swim into. We changed that tank so that now we can lift the bottom to take the animals out. The animals are trained to position themselves over a stack of 2 tires. So when they come out of the water, now the turtle is balanced on top of 2 tires. The turtle's been trained that what's going to happen. They're very, very calm. They just sit there. We can then restrain their front flippers to hold them still. I can have one person gently extend the neck a little bit, and I can get my blood sample. I can follow that up because now the animal's 3 feet in the air. I can do a good ophthalmic exam without getting my face too close to the business end of the turtle. We can do all of our examination in that way. If we have to, we can also perform some radiographs because our radiographic equipment is portable. We can do ultrasound there. The really exciting part to me, though, is now there's really very, very little stress. This animal has an opportunity to say, nope, I'm not going to stay on the tires. You're not going to make me swim to them. And when they say no, we back away and try another day. When they're up on the tires, they're really calm. They're not struggling. You don't have a bunch of frantic flipper waving and people getting pushed around and slapped by flippers. So it works out very, very well. This training has become quite a good thing for an animal that's as big and as just charismatic as for X49 and X59.
That's wonderful. A lot of people wondering how long did it take to train the turtles to do this, and then what's the mechanism to train a turtle to be tired on command?
It probably took them 6 to 8 months.
Wow.
I sometimes joke that turtles only have a couple of neurons in their brain and they don't always fire in synchrony. But essentially, food is the key. And you get this animal to come out. You make the water shallow enough that people can walk out there. You change some things around, so they're vegetarians. Most of the gloves, as I'm sure you've seen at the aquarium, like the one in the sand dollar, are green. So we stopped wearing green gloves because that confused them, because that
Oh,
matched the
interesting.
color of their food. So we went to black gloves. You train them to swim by the tires. Then you train them to swim over the tires and make them realize the tire is not going to hurt them. Then you train them to stop over the tires. Then you gradually start, you raise the tires up, then you drop them right back down. You reward them with food when they do the appropriate thing. So it's just a baby steps with rewards for doing the right thing. And if they don't do the right thing, that's okay. You just wait. You wait till they do the right thing, then you reward them. There's no
Yeah,
negative reinforcement at all.
yeah, that positive reinforcement training is probably sounding familiar to many of you who might have trained a pet at home before. I know that, training my dog at home too, we use a lot of positive reinforcement when I ask her to do things, or if I see her doing something that's good, I'm giving her lots of treats, and that's exactly how we work with a lot of the animals at the aquarium. Um, Dr. Mike, I did see a couple of people asking here, and I think it's an important question to talk about. If an animal does get sick in the aquarium, say when we notice that some of the fish have those parasites in their gills, how do we keep the other fish in the same exhibits from getting those parasites as well? How do we keep the other animals safe?
Well, it depends. There are there are parasites, and then there are parasites. Our Ocean's Edge exhibits, the ones that get the raw seawater, that are an ambient, or the normal seawater we have out in the bay, are going to always have a bit of a background level of parasitism. And one of the things I do on rounds is I look at how many parasites these animals obviously have. And if it looks like they've got more than one would expect, then we start thinking about, is there something going on that is stressing this animal? Does she or he have a roommate that's a bit of a bully? Um, are they coming into reproductive conditions? So there's a bit of a shift in their hormonal structure. And then there are parasites out in the wild that do cause problems over time, even in free ranging fish. Um, so when we see it in the nearshore wing, depending upon the name of the parasite, sort of dictates how we're going to manage it. Our giant sea bass seem to be much more susceptible to the effects of parasitism than some of the other fishes. So they're on a preventive medicine program every um, 3 to 4 months, where they actually get a bath in fresh water to knock all the parasites off. We are doing some training now with those particular fish to see if we can actually use a hose with dechlorinated fresh water underwater and basically hose the fish down and affect the parasites without having to handle these animals. If we go across the bridge over into our tropical fishes or up into splash zone, many of those parasites are much more devastating, can actually affect the entire collection. And some of those animals are more sensitive to the effects, and they may act as sentinels. So if we have one of the yellow tang that breaks with a parasitic infection, we'll see it first in them before we see it in the others. So that tells us, yes, this particular bug is in there. We're going to have to treat the whole tank. And at that point, there's a discussion between the veterinary staff, the curatorial staff, the animal care staff, and then the applied water science staff about how can we do this? Do we need to pull all the fish out of the exhibit and treat them behind the scenes, um, and then drain and sterilize the tank? Can we treat them all on exhibit? Are there treatments that we can do that aren't going to affect the water, to come up with a plan? So to me, the important thing is to be able to, number one, identify the name of the parasite, because it's really going to predict how you're going to manage it, how dangerous it is, and then make sure that you have all the right people in the room when you start talking about treatment. This isn't like a traditional companion animal practice where the veterinarian comes in and says, these are the drugs we want to use. It's much more complicated than that because we're dealing with so many moving parts with the habitat itself, with things that live in there that aren't fishes, with the water and how we have to manage our water and the requirements that we live with on how we manage water that may or may not have had drugs in it. So it's a conversation, and we come up with a plan we think is going to be best. And then I like to factor in the concept that what is appropriate in 2015 is probably not going to be appropriate in 2020 because this science and art is changing on a daily basis.
Wow. That's all so fascinating, and talk about something to really be thinking about, this whole aquarium connected through the water and how things are passed through the water. I did want to address one question that I saw go by at the start of this stream, which is whether or not the animals in our care are susceptible to coronavirus viruses there. That was just a few questions that went at the start of this. So just since we're talking to a veterinarian, what is the consensus on that?
Well, it depends on what coronavirus you're talking about, and I'm going to take the assumption that we're talking about the one that has all the notoriety right now, the SARS-19 coronavirus. But animals obviously get coronaviruses. There's coronavirus for just about all the animals, the birds, but most of those don't make that crossover into other species. And this one in particular did. There's a lot of questions about who can be or what animals may or may not be susceptible. The one that I have the greatest concern for, besides my coworkers and friends at the aquarium and around the planet, are the sea otters. We know that the original SARS coronavirus that came through several years ago was definitely capable of infecting ferrets. And ferrets are a cousin of the sea otter. So theoretically, any virus that affects a ferret may affect a sea otter. And that exists for an awful lot of different viruses that ferrets can get susceptible to sea otters. The good news for the sea otter is that their natural history is such that they're probably not going to be exposed to things like that. The ones that we have here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, we are being exquisitely careful to talk and make sure that nobody who has anything that appears to be a clinical illness is A, in the building, but B, doesn't work with the sea otters. We are actually doing what we can when we can for social distancing. And we did the math using Pythagorean theorem, A squared plus B squared equals C squared, about how far your mouth is from the nose of a sea otter when you're working with it up on our sea otter habitat, to make sure that when you're standing, if you're a little bit over 5.5 feet and stand back a meter from the edge of the water, you're more than 6 feet away. So you are appropriately social distancing from the sea otter. There are times when folks have to bend down to do certain things. We've got one of our otters has cataracts and is getting some eye drops in association with that. So they have to bend down to work with her. But everybody is aware of this potential. So we're being very, very careful. In talking to colleagues that are in Seattle at the aquarium there and at the New York aquarium, both of them have sea otters in those facilities, and they've not seen any evidence of problems with sea otters having what appear to be respiratory disease in Seattle and New York.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
And Emily, we might be able to, if you folks are wondering, we've got another pupper that is currently Troopers hanging out over with Emily right now. Emily, did you see any other?
We're working on the positive reinforcement, speaking of that, right now with her in the work from home situation on the quiet command.
Yeah.
And she's doing pretty well. She's doing a lot better than she was 3 weeks ago, so she's
Yeah.
making progress with that positive reinforcement there.
She's learning very well. And for those of you folks that are tuning in right now, we've been live here for about 50 minutes here with our staff veterinarian, Dr. Mike, and we have Emily over in her house. And my name's Patrick. I'm over in my abode, and we're looking at a live stream here of the Monterey Bay Habitats exhibit. It looks like our animal care staff have just wrapped up going in, siphoning, cleaning up the exhibit, scrubbing it down. Dr. Mike, in the next 10 minutes here, we'll see if we have any more questions, but we had one question that went by that I think was very interesting. How do you view the impact of an institution like the Monterey Bay Aquarium and other zoos and aquariums in our AZA org? What is their impact to our understanding of the biology of animals through your work of veterinary medicine and to our knowledge there of those animals?
Well, I think there's a tremendous impact that we can bring to bear. My experience in that impact, or at least being impactful, is primarily associated with the sea otter and to a lesser degree with the white shark. To get up close and personal with the sea otter, working with animals that come through in our stranding program, have allowed us to take information that we gain from what a normal sea otter looks like and what a normal sea otter is, and then through our collaborations with other scientific organizations and academics and government agencies, we're able actually to export that into the wild. And an example of that, I think, Patrick, is the Bering Island image.
Okay, I'll bring that up right now.
So, we've actually brought methodology that I've developed in our laboratory, doing things like liver biopsies endoscopically, so that scientists are able to answer questions like, does the Exxon Valdez oil spill remnant oil still have an impact on sea otters? And we can actually go to the liver and do our liver biopsy through two little very tiny holes. Takes about 10 minutes, and the animal's back in the water in about 25 minutes, which is really a pretty remarkable feat when you think about doing it out on a boat. So we've done that. Another thing that has happened is, when we actually put white sharks in front of the public several years ago, the response by the public was remarkable. I remember when I would go and check on our first fish and see how she was doing, there was a young lady standing there. I have no idea how old she was. She certainly was not a teenager yet. And the shark was swimming directly towards her, almost eyeball to eyeball, directly towards her. And her response was not one of fear. It was, "Daddy, look, she's smiling." And folks got an appreciation for just the beauty, the significance, the importance of animals, that there probably aren't many that were more demonized than great white sharks. Yet when they actually saw them and saw they weren't eating everything in sight within our habitat, they started to understand. They started to become more and more curious. They started to become more and more attached, and started to recognize that, yes, that much of the stories about these animals are overblown. So the ability to have animals be seen, I think, is important. If we look at conservation efforts, when we started with some of the bison work way back when, back in New York, black-footed ferrets, look at the California condor, those would not be out in the wild without, zoos and aquariums stepping up and really participating and taking the knowledge that they have, working with relatives of some of these highly endangered animals, and applying it to the endangered species to help bring some of these critters back. So I think there's an awful lot that we can do from a conservation perspective, from a basic science perspective, and from an understanding of natural history and conservation.
Well, that's an incredibly thorough answer. Thank you so much, Dr. Mike. Yeah, just so much work being done by yourself, your colleagues, everyone out there. So we have a few colleagues of of ours from San Diego Zoo that are tuning in over on Twitch. So shout out to them as well. Thank you so much for your work, Dr. Mike. So many people are very, very thankful in the chat right now, saying just displaying their gratitude to you and your team for everything that you're doing. Emily.
Yeah, I've also,
yeah.
I was just going to say, Patrick, we've seen a lot of, our staff and volunteers tuning in with us right now, people who have visited the aquarium thanking you. But I've also seen a couple of comments go by of people thanking you, Dr. Mike, even before you started working at the aquarium. Just as a vet, a lot of people have had you as a veterinarian taking care of their own pets who are sending in thank yous right now. So just lots of love coming in from the internet to you right now.
Oh, that's kind of them. Thank you very much. The image, I don't know if it's still up, Patrick.
So I just have you with the stethoscope and our little young penguin chick. I can pull up any image you would like, though.
Nope, that's fine. No, I just wondering what you folks were looking at.
Yeah. Just taking a closer look at you doing your best care there with the young penguin. Let's see. We've got about if we really want to just go the distance and hit 1 hour of streaming, we could definitely do that. If you folks have any final questions, go for it. But Dr. Mike, we've got maybe 3 minutes left here. Is there a topic you wanted to cover in those 3 minutes from those images that you gave to us, or anything that we feel like we left out here that you definitely want to share with the folks?
I don't think anything in particular. I hope everybody's hanging in there, staying safe. I have recognized, I used to say frequently, gosh, if the world would stop for 2 weeks, look how much work I could get done. I could get caught up. Yeah, it ain't working.
No, I don't think
it wasn't come to fruition.
Yeah, you always kind of want to make sure that you have all the different caveats in there, just like, but I don't mean a pandemic or anything like that. Yeah, that would be.
Yeah. I have managed to polish the pipes under the sinks, though. So, I really enjoyed this opportunity to interact. I'm a bit old school. I'm a lot old school. So this is really challenging. Takes me outside of my comfort zone, but I've enjoyed it. And if folks are interested in anything like this, again, we certainly just contact Patrick and Emily.
Yeah, well, we'd love.
They know where I work.
We'd love to set that up. Emily, did you see anything?
We've had one question come in that I saw that I know that will probably be a pretty popular question, just because it's, I know, one of our favorite animals, Patrick, and a lot of folks' favorite animal, Dr. Mike. How has it been working with our ocean sunfish that we've had throughout the year?
Yay, that's my avatar, ocean sunfish. What's it like working with the molas?
Well, there's a picture there. I think it's titled Mola Exam.
Oh boy, I'm going to bring that up right now.
They are without a doubt the most difficult animal I've ever worked with.
Yes, that's what you want to hear.
Yeah, they're big. You can see here we've got this animal in a stretcher. This is a relatively small mola. The skin itself is very, very delicate, very, very thin, but underlying it is this fibrous dermis that has the consistency of coconut meat.
Wow.
And it doesn't flex at all. They don't have any blood vessels near the surface, so you end up having to go based on anatomy and where these blood vessels are found. And if they're not exactly where they're supposed to be, because something like the stomach is full and pushed it out of the way, you have to search for it, and it's not an easy thing to do. They have a very small gill opening, so you can't really get inside of it. You don't want to damage their skin mucus. They're amazing fish, but they're just really tough to work on. The other thing can be kind of annoying is they're very good shots with water.
Yes.
And if I were to move a little bit, about a step to my left in that image, I can assure you she would know it. and there would be a jet of water coming out through that operculum where the gills are at, which would saturate me. If I were standing in front where I think it's Wyatt is standing right now, she would spit a stream of water. What you can't see is that he has a hose there that's into her water to respire for. So they, yeah, they're challenging to work with. I really enjoy them. They're amazing. They look very slow and sluggish, but I have seen them both in the wild and in our habitat, our open seas habitat, reach from the water and totally leave the water and make an amazing splash.
That
I
is,
have no idea why they do
quite
it.
the sight to see.
I've seen it once at the aquarium as well. The flight of the mola is one of the most majestic natural phenomena. I mean, I'm putting it up there with Aurora Borealis and you know, Halley Bop's comet. When you see them jumping out of the water, it's truly something to see.
Yeah, I would agree with the flight part. The landing is
Yeah.
a bit to be desired.
No, we never judge based off of the landing, of course.
No.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Mike, for your time. We have hit the hour mark, and so we do want to make sure that you have plenty of time to get back to the math and the reading that we know you have coming up for the rest of today. But for the folks that are currently still on the stream, if we could please get gigantic thank yous, all caps would be appropriate right now, in the chat. Send us your messages thanking Dr. Mike so much for spending so much time with us. Thank you, Dr. Mike, for all of that information, the wonderful stories, the images. This has been really, really awesome, and we're starting to see those thank yous coming in on the chat right now. Yes, all caps. There they are right there. Thank you so much, Dr. Mike. This has been awesome.
Well, thanks, y'all. Please be safe. And the human herd immunity is coming, I'm sure. So be careful. And I hope to talk to you all again.
Awesome.
Thank you, Dr. Mike. And thank you to everyone who's been tuning in with us today. Just to echo what Dr. Mike was saying, we hope that you're all staying safe, and we hope that you enjoyed today's stream. I saw a couple of teachers tuning in today, wondering if this was going to be available afterwards. And absolutely, right after the stream, if you head over to our YouTube channel, our Twitch channel, on Facebook, Periscope, it'll be everywhere as a saved video that you can use with your students again and again. We want to make sure that no matter when you're tuning in, whether it's live or afterwards, that we have these resources available to you.
Absolutely. Yep. And we might recommend fast forwarding to maybe a minute or two in after we solved our audio issues there, everybody, if you are watching that again. But thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you, Dr. Mike. Thank you, Emily. Thank you, all the folks out there, for tuning in. We will see you again soon here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. In fact, tomorrow afternoon around 2:30, we're going to try to do a deep sea live stream with some of our colleagues over at the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute. So hopefully we will see you tomorrow at 2:30 Friday. But with that, everyone, thanks so much for watching. See you again soon at the Monterey Bay Aquarium.